how many of those, Larry, how many of those Patriot systems are still in GCC countries? Do we have any sort of understanding of that? We know that the last time I heard of Patriot system, it was in Iraq, in northern part of Iraq. They say they removed most of them.
Well, do you mean the launcher or the missiles?
The batteries.
Yeah, well, there may be a few batteries left. So what? They're useless. They don't have missiles. You know, you might as well have a concrete statue parked outside your house. I'm not sure how many, Patriot batteries are left because it's not just one launcher. It's got a launcher and it's got a radar component. But the problem is they don't have the PAC-3 missiles. And if there's any PAC-2s left, those are useless. I mean, those are basically what they do is they go up and explode and send out shrapnel hoping to hit an incoming missile. Whereas at least the PAC-3 in theory was designed to hit, physically impact. But the supply of PAC-3s, it's exhausted for all practical purposes. There may be 10, 15 here or there, the other place, but you don't have enough that could be used in a heavy ballistic missile bombardment, such as if Iran fires off 30 missiles, that means you got to have at least 60 Patriots, at least. And more often than not, they're firing not just 2, but sometimes as many as 4 to 6 to just try to take down one missile. And I don't. I was just sorry. I was just going to say, I don't know if you saw the latest Lego video from those Iranian kids, but it's dealing with the Patriot missile, and it shows the Patriot missiles being fired at a Fatah Iranian missile, and the Patriot missiles are all going by, and the Fatah continues in and hits its target.
Yeah, I've seen the one about Donald Trump and hiding in. Is Israel, Larry, capable of producing interceptors inside Israel? Do they have the industrial base to produce those missiles?
No. They can produce some. They have produced some. But in quantity, no. And like anybody else, if they're going to produce it, they got to come up with the rare earth minerals. They're not immune to that, and I don't think China's going to sell them rare earth minerals.
They're not in a good, sort of. They're basically, they say China as their enemy, and I don't know what is behind this, but they're not happy. Is that because of China inviting all those 14 factions in Palestine together to resolve the issue? What is the problem between Israel and China?
Well, I don't know if there's necessarily a problem between Israel and China, because I would argue that, at least as far as I know, the trade relationships between China and Israel remain intact. That hasn't been disrupted. That, in fact, it's one of the criticisms I would levy against the government of China, that they've allowed this genocide by virtue of the trade relationship with Israel. They've got enough clout that they could tell Israel, basically, stop this genocide, or else we're not going to have any more economic relations with you. They haven't done that. And the same criticism of Russia, in my view.
And Turkey.
Yeah.
I think these countries are just sitting back looking at Turkey, what Turkey and Azerbaijan are doing. So if they're Muslim and they're doing this, so why should we be more concerned about Palestine than these people?
Right.
I don't blame them, because of the behavior of the government in Turkey. Larry, what the Strait of Hormuz and what's going on in that strait, it seems that the two sides, the negotiations are going on, and the signs are positive that they have reached that agreement. And is that going to be possible for Donald Trump to find some sort of off ramp
Well,
using that?
yeah, trying to separate Trump's rhetoric and his true social posts from what's going on in reality. So, and again, I may be grasping at straws here, but there are we've seen two things that I'll call seem to indicate that that these talks are serious. So let's start with the Iranian demands are the ending the wars in Lebanon, Palestine, Yemen, and Iraq. What have we seen? Well, we've seen a remarkable, I'll call it remarkable, decrease in Israeli military attacks in Lebanon in particular. The settler assaults on the West Bank Palestinians have been going on, but the kind of bombing and military operations we were seeing out of Israel 2 weeks ago, they're not happening now. You guys say, well, why is that? One possible explanation is that finally the Trump administration behind closed doors told them, cut that shit out. And, it's got to end now. That's number one. Number two, there have been several flights from the United Arab Emirates into Iran. Just planes go in, and then they come right back out. They stay on the ground a half hour to an hour. What's that all about? Well, it's reported that they're carrying gold and currency, billions of dollars. So is this part of the unfreezing of assets that, again, Iran has demanded as a prerequisite for any deal? You've seen a complete stand down in U.S. military operations against Iranian targets, despite Iran still going after ships that try to circumvent Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz. And then, Pepe and I are hearing through the Pakistani sources, and again, take it with a grain of salt. Just because Pakistan says it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. But Pakistan insists that there are serious conversations underway with they're talking to JD Vance, and then they are talking to Araghchi and Ghalibaf. So is there actual deal in the work? Yeah, potentially. We'll see. Again, today is, I think, Independence Day in Pakistan, or it's a national holiday. And originally, some of the Iranian delegation was supposed to attend that. We'll see if they do. But there could be. The United States needs a deal, but even the United States may be investing too much hope that once they get the deal open and operating, that it will suddenly magically turn around the economics. And as I've written before, the damage to the infrastructure in the United Arab Emirates, in Qatar, in Bahrain, Kuwait, is significant. Saudi, not so much. I mean, Saudi's had some damage, but it may be months, if not years, before some of that damage is repaired, which means there's not going to be an easy, quick turnaround.
Do you mean that if UAE is sending something to Iran, it means that they it's coordinated with the United States. Is that the case?
Yes, yes. That's what I think is going on.
Because I heard the same thing, that UAE is trying to, is sending a lot of, as you've mentioned, maybe gold or something else, sending Iran. But on the other hand, we have Scott Bessent talking about the next week going to be something different. We're going to hit them hard. This time around, it's going to be different. I don't know what sort of, plan does he have. Here is what he said.
From epic fury to economic fury. And at the president's orders, we have raised the level even again. And watch this space for more announcements coming next week, because we are going to apply measures like have never been seen in the history of economic isolation on a country.
Yeah, again, he's assuming that Iran is isolated, and if he was doing that 11 years ago in 2015, they probably could have done that, because Iran was isolated in 2015. I mean, at that time, China and Russia were fully on board with the West and the sanctions against Russia, sanctions against Iran. Not today. The trade, Iran, Russia, China, they're trading, and they're trading in currency outside of the U.S. currency. They're not operating at all within the U.S. financial infrastructure. China has created, with Russia, as part of, both the Russian and Chinese have created alternatives that are completely out of the range of U.S. control. And so that's where Iran is now starting to operate in that framework. And then Iran's got its open border with Pakistan, and Pakistan, instead of an antagonism towards Iran, has become a partner with Iran and facilitating trade. So, Bessent lives in his little fantasy world. I mean, the more I see this guy, the more I'm disgusted by him. I think he's just he's an incompetent, a malevolent incompetent. I mean, he can really create some problems.
It seems that Donald Trump is sending Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to Russia. Again, he wants.
Well, just first they're sending it. Kushner's supposed to go into Israel.
Yeah, it's gonna be in Israel next week. But there is another. It maybe after Israel they're gonna go to Russia, because we've learned from Lavrov. He said that we're open to talk with Americans, but we're not gonna change our terms. It's gonna be all about, the main objectives of Russia. We have to achieve all of them, every single one of them.
Well, I think the Russians also said, "Oh, yeah, okay, you're welcome to come, but depends on what do you got to say." If you just come for a visit, yeah, Russia's a great place to visit. I vouch for that. Beautiful country and great people, good food. But what are you coming to? You bringing some offer? The only offer you should be bringing is, we're going to stop providing intelligence to the Ukrainians, and we're going to tell the Ukrainians to shut this whole operation down. Russia would say, okay, well, yeah, that's a message we're willing to receive. Otherwise, what the United States is going to threaten, we're going to ramp up support for Ukraine.
Larry, I see the same sort of atmosphere in Iran as I was witnessing during the last days during the Biden administration, because the sentiment, the understanding on the part of Russian was the problem is the Biden administration. These people don't want to talk, don't want to negotiate with the Russians, which was the case, by the way. They avoided any sort of negotiations with Russians. They didn't
Correct.
talk. They didn't call each other. Nothing. And then Donald Trump came, and they thought that Donald Trump would be different. And we are where we are right now.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that Iran is feeling the same way. Even that commander, IRGC commander that you mentioned, Nagli, who had an interview yesterday, he's basically mentioning outlasting the Trump administration in, hoping maybe the next administration would be different. Is that some sort of delusional, or they have no other option to think of?
Who's they? Which
I'm
they?
talking Iran and Russia. These people, they don't have anybody in Washington to talk with. Serious talks. I'm not talking
Right.
about these sort of,
Well, the Russians, I think, would say now at least they've got someone, they do have someone to talk to. They're not really sure it's worth their time, effort, and energy, but they do have someone to talk to, which is quite, I heard directly from Sergei Rybkov, the deputy foreign minister. In fact, when I met him, I didn't really realize who he was. I was clueless, but I was with Pepe, and we were talking to him, and he said, "Look, this is December of 2023." He said, "We don't have anybody to talk to in Washington." So yeah, that has changed. They got Witkoff and Kushner to talk to. And Putin can pick up the phone and have a conversation with Trump. Problem with Trump is you're not sure if he's going to remember what the hell he said. He'll say one thing and then 12 hours later say a completely different thing. And the same, with respect to Iran, Iran cannot trust a single thing the U.S. negotiators say. They've dealt primarily, again, with Witkoff and Kushner. And the last time they trusted them, they ended up getting attacked. So, I think both the Russians and the Iranians have adopted let's call it the trust but verify approach. Hey, you can make any promise you want. We're going to have to see, we don't want you to promise that you're going to pay me money. Screw that. You're going to give me the money up front, and then we'll conclude this deal.
Larry, do you think that Donald Trump is weakening as time goes by? What is happening to Donald Trump? I remember his first term in Washington, he was so much firing back. We had, the Russia Gate, all those problems with Donald Trump. Right now, the whole case of Russia Gate, even I thought when the Epstein file started, I thought that could be the same, but you see the Epstein file, it's just, smashing it, somehow influencing everything with the Trump administration. It's not Russiagate, it was all false, it was all made up, but Epstein file, it seems that it's getting more serious as time goes by.
Well, why do you say that? I'm curious, what are you seeing that I'm not seeing that? So that's why I'm asking.
Okay, my understanding is who's intimidating Donald Trump? Why is he weakening? Why does he need to sign an agreement, then come after and say, I don't agree anything in that agreement? There has to be something behind the scenes, pressure on him.
Which agreement are you talking about?
MOU, for example.
Oh, the MOU. Okay.
So why do you need? If you don't agree, you don't sign anything with them. You continue the conflict as it was before, but you sign an agreement and then capitulate. Then, change your position. Then you say, no, I didn't agree. I don't like this. I don't like that. And he's weakening. You see the guy who was somehow, I'm out. You remember during the election, they tried to assassinate him and coming out, fight. Where is that guy? That guy is not there anymore, in my opinion.
Well,
at least the picture, if it wasn't real.
Trump's political clout is in question. He has been unable to get Senator John Thune, the Republican majority leader, to do what Trump wants with respect to like the Save, I guess it's called the Save America Act. It was to impose some reforms requiring people to be registered and to and to be validly registered and show proof of registration before they could vote. You just couldn't just take some anonymous person. And Thune has, basically thwarted him on that. And Trump, if Trump was really a political powerhouse, Thune would have paid a terrible price. Thune hasn't paid a price at all. So yeah, Trump's position is weakened. His the Epstein file debacle damaged severely. That was sort of the first chunk of his support that disappeared, because he had promised transparency and to get to the bottom of it, and then all of a sudden is part of a cover-up, and then accusing anybody that's talking about it, even using Donald Trump's own words that he previously had used, accusing them of being Democratic operatives. And then when he started the war in Iran, further alienated a significant part of his base. So that's one reason. The last poll I saw had his support at 27%. That is, that's Keir Starmer territory, or Emmanuel Macron territory. So Trump is not in a robust political position. The thing, ironically, what might save him from suffering a political debacle in November are the Democrats' obsession now with this democratic socialism. While there's a large number of people in the United States now who embrace the concept of socialism, it's not an insignificant number. It's still not a majority. And the majority sentiment in America is strongly, they conflate socialism and communism, and it's all seen as one big block. So that ends up, it becomes a scare tactic to get people out to vote. So, Trump still, and the people around him, I think they see that as something that will give them an out that they can use to, rally support. But Trump is weak politically. There's no doubt about that. And the setbacks, like with this war with Iran, he can proclaim, "Oh, we've obliterated this. We destroyed their navy. The strait is open." Okay, it's like, if the strait is open, then what the hell are you continuing the war for? If it's open, what's the problem? Why are the ships not just going through there, with carefree? So they keep lying, and at some point that those lies just become impossible to defend.
The point is, for those liberals or neoliberals in Iran and Russia, they thought, I would assume, whoever is trying to talk with Donald Trump, they thought before Donald Trump being elected, they said, this guy is transactional. It's all about, making deals. He's going to, we're going to resolve those issues with the United States using that sort of sentiment on the part of Donald Trump. Do you think they're learning from what has happened so far, that line doesn't work? Donald Trump is not transactional. He's not about making deals. I'm talking about making economic ties, and under these economic ties, you can resolve the political issues. It seems to me that Russia and Iran somehow learning, it doesn't matter how you offer, what you offer, and how you want to cooperate with Donald Trump economically. He's not going to be able to resolve the political problems with Russia and Iran.
I'm not sure I agree. Look, you're correct. He does take a very transactional approach to it, but there's also, I think really what you're talking about is the Zionist influence
Exactly.
in the administration. Yeah,
That hatred, that sentiment that exists, and you cannot resolve it with these sort of economic ties.
yeah. So that's where normally in most of his dealings, he's going to be looking at, what's the economic outcome, and basically how can I benefit me and my family. I mean, they are grifters to a horrifying extent. I mean, the corruption that the Biden family engaged in looks minuscule compared to what Trump is engaged in. But at the same time, he is out of his loyalty to the Zionist cause, has ignored doing what makes sense economically in order to align himself with the Zionist demands. So yeah, that is, that's been a problem. And then, what is totally unclear is why he persists in providing intelligence and facilitating Ukraine's continued ability to launch terrorist attacks inside Russia. The Russians aren't asking me for advice, but if I was Vladimir Putin, I would deliver Trump an ultimatum and just say, look, this is how it is. If you continue to supply this intelligence and facilitate these attacks in our country, any U.S. military aircraft that's on our borders, we're going to shoot it down. And just flat out, you draw the line in the sand and said, this is now a red line. We're not going to allow you to cross that. If you cross that, there's going to be consequences. And because, I think up to this point, what the Russians have failed to understand is Putin's attempts to be reasonable and diplomatic are viewed as weakness. And instead of recognizing that the Russians are in a far, far stronger position than the United States, but the narrative in the West is just the opposite. The Russia's weak.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Larry, for being with us today.
All right,
Great
my friend.
pleasure. See you tomorrow.
All right. 5 o'clock.
Can we do it at 2, Larry? At 2
No,
p.m.?
I'm
Then put it 5.
I'm teaching tomorrow, so I won't be done
Yeah.
teaching until at least 4.
So one day I'm gonna get one of these classes of amazing classes of yours.
This is teaching people how to do gun safety.
Yeah.
So, all right, take
See you
care.
tomorrow then.
Bye.
Bye-bye.